All right, welcome. Thank you everybody for joining. My name is Lindsay Rickershauser and I'm the product manager for ChemDraw. I'd love to welcome you to our ChemDraw Connect webinar today of Web First Chemistry, Unleashing the Potential of ChemDraw Plus and ChemDraw Collections. So today I am joined by my colleague Jinsu Kim, who is a resident ChemDraw expert and manager of the Americas Field Application Scientist at Remedy Signals. Within our webinar today, we plan to cover a few topics. First of which will be our ChemDraw Collections application in which you can find embedded chemical drawings inside of different office documents and manage your experimental data, build lists of compounds, and generate reports from them. Additionally, we will be talking about the ChemDraw Plus application, which is a new application launched just this February alongside Signals ChemDraw, a fully web integrated ChemDraw application, which allows you to manage and curate your drawings in the cloud. We'll be able to show you some new improvements that we've made there and give you a new context-based web editing experience. So with that, I will say, as we go forward in this webinar, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have in the questions tab of the GoToWebinar. If you have any technical issues that you need help with, you can use the chat function as well, and we'll be able to help you with that. With that, thank you everybody for joining, and Jinsu, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Lindsay. I'm going to. Here we go. Okay, let's talk collections. Before we talk collections, I do want to give a little bit of context about what is ChemDraw Collections and where did it come from. Now, many of you on the call, like me, have been using ChemDraw for a long time. We're approaching the 40th anniversary of this software, so it's become very entrenched in the industry, very well loved. A lot of you are longtime users like myself, and so you've generated tremendous amounts of content. And over the course of those years, not only have you generated a lot of content across a lot of different kind of versions, but those versions are stored across many different instruments, or different kind of storage places. And so you've been using ChemDraw for many years. You've been using Microsoft products for many years. And not only have you been using these different products for many years, you've used them on different kinds of platforms, whether it be a personal laptop, a work laptop. You've stored things into external drives or onto cloud servers and things like that. Over the course of many years, you've accumulated a tremendous amount of knowledge. But what happens to all of that content as you start to move on, as the years pile up, and you've got all this content sitting in different places, what happens to all of that content? The ideal state is, hey, we can always still go back to it. We still have a record of it. We can use it. The reality of this situation is not quite so rosy. That realistically, most of that stuff just turns into a graveyard, right? Hey, I wrote a publication several years ago on this topic. Go look for those structures. How are you going to find that on your hard drive, right? Hey, I helped write a patent. It's 250 pages. There's some structures buried in there you might find interesting. Realistically, that just becomes a pile of documents somewhere that maybe you'll be able to find something later, but probably not. But what if you could? What if you could scour those documents and pull relevant chemical information out so that you could reuse that content for some, in some kind of publication or a presentation, or maybe you find other interesting molecules. We've all heard these stories of, hey, we abandoned a project for a little while, but now things are starting to get interesting in that area again. We'd like to go back and maybe pull some of those compounds again. So that is kind of where we were aiming to get. Can we enable you to do something like this, where you go search through this historical repository of content that you have, create yourself a little subset, and then use that subset list again for whatever purpose it needs to be, whether it be presentation, some type of publication or patent write-up or something like that. Now, it would be awesome if you could go through your hard drive and pull up a bunch of compounds and then make it look kind of like this, right? This would be really, really convenient. That is the goal of ChemDraw Collections. So what this allows you to do is it's a separate application that is included with your ChemDraw subscription. And it's much like Chem3D, right? It's not embedded in the ChemDraw interface. You have a separate application that you go to, but it's going to allow you to scour your hard drive, find things that are not only ChemDraw, the CDXML files, but also you can look through your Word files, PowerPoints, things like that, and see, is there chemical structure content buried in these particular items? That was the goal of ChemDraw Collections. So let me go ahead and open up the application right now. Okay, so this is basically the home page of what ChemDraw Collections looks like. On the left is my Windows folder, kind of the file explorer, right? You recognize this from all sorts of other things. And so I can just start to click into some of these folders. Okay, let me get into my collections folder. Okay, I've got some papers here that I might want to look at. And then when I click into this item here, you see I'm not really seeing very much here, but then when I get down to this particular item, all of a sudden content pops up. It says, hey, I see chemical content in this Word file here. Now, what is this thing reading? Let me show you what this is accessing. This is a publication here, and I don't know if you can quite see, but the bonds here are pretty grainy. They're pretty pixelated here. This is ChemDraw 8. This is the version of ChemDraw that I was using in graduate school. And so it's obviously quite old. This publication is quite old, but using ChemDraw Collections, I was able to click on that file and it immediately said, hey, did you know that there's chemical content in here that you might find interesting? So I can just scour, hey, what are all the different things in here that I might find interesting? Now, what I can do from here is maybe I want to create some kind of a collection of things that I find interesting. Well, wait a minute, let me select that one, and then standard kind of controls, hold the control key if you want to select multiple things here. Okay, cool, I've selected a few things. This is what I want to do. Now you add these to, what you're going to do is you're going to create a collection. So let's call this my September 2024 collection. There we go. Create. And then, so you see it says it's adding those items. And now I have created a collection. There we are. So what it is it's essentially basically a spreadsheet. You can think of it like an SD file or something like that. But here are those 3 items that I added. And here's a history of all the other things that I've gone through as well. One of the other, now that I've created this collection, I can continue to add things. So you say, hey, that was kind of cool, but maybe I've got other things that I want to add, right? So maybe there's an SD file, obviously. Hey, here's something that I might like to add. Oh, cool. There's some other interesting stuff that I might like to pop into that particular file. Here we go. And I can add it to that collection. I can create a brand new collection if I want, but I just say, hey, I want to keep building on that thing that I started earlier, adding items, and then I go into the collections. Now, if you're ever in the interface and you wonder, wait, where do I access all of those collections? Let's say, hey, I'm not adding something new. I just want to see where the collections are. Here are the icons up here that lead you to that. And then this one over here on the left is the collections, and the one that I created most recently is down here at the bottom. Here are all the items that I've added. This spreadsheet here basically is now very configurable by you. You can start to alter things. So I've got all sorts of interesting fields here. I've got things like the molecular weight, the C log P, the molecular formula. These are things that ChemDraw is able to calculate for me. And I get into other things. What is the document name? What's the location, the source type? I might want to curate this form a little bit more. So what I can do is say, hey, listen, I'd like to change the properties that I'm seeing here. I don't want to see things like the location or the document type. Here we go. Maybe I just molecular weight's good enough and I don't even need the exact mass. There we go. And now I've curated down this spreadsheet, right? And then I can also start to rearrange things. I might say, well, wait a minute, I'd like the formula, the molecular formula, to be right near the molecular weight. There we are. I can move that, and log P should be by the C log P. Those things make sense. So very, very customizable. Then the last thing here is I might need to change some of these things. These names here are kind of meaningless to me. So I'm going to double click into here. Let's call that JK1, JK2. And all I'm doing is just hitting enter as I'm moving down. But now basically I'm making alterations to this form here. So it's brought in a bunch of things from historical documents that are very old, reading very old versions of Word, very old versions of ChemDraw. I've now generated a spreadsheet here with some kind of interesting information that I might like to look at. But maybe I want to share this information with some other folks. Maybe I say, hey, look, I was going through this old patent and there's some really interesting stuff in here. I want to be able to share that with folks. So I'm just going to pick a subset of them here. Let's just pick these 4 right here. What I might like to do is share these things. Now I can export it either as a structure report. If you're looking at reactions, you can make a reaction report, or if you've gotten so many structures that you want to just export it as an SD file, we have the V2000 and V3000 exports available to you here as well. So I say I want a structure report, and then here are all the features that are by default selected to show. I might say, well, listen, I don't want that exact mass in there, but I might like to have either a pKa or maybe the IC50 if there's something that's been reported for these things. So you can, again, come in here and change the way that the form is going to look. The layout here, do you want 3 rows? Do you want 4 rows? How many columns do you want? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Where do you want the properties? Above, left, right, all sorts of things here. Export that particular item, and we'll call it September 2024. And that file is now on my desktop. Give me 1 second to pull it up. And now I have this really nice looking PowerPoint kind of presentation. I just went through a couple of papers that were, these documents were many, many years old, very old versions of Word, very old versions of ChemDraw. And I was able to pull meaningful structural information out of that and get not only some important information like the molecular weights and formulas, but I repurposed it. So I can say, hey, look at these things, and now I can share it with people on my team. So it's a very, very powerful way for you to be able to go back into your hard drive and look at all of those things that you've been saving for all these years because you swear this is useful and I might be able to use this in the future. Now you really can. The future is here with collections. This is going to let you go ahead and scour through all the stuff on your hard drive, pull out all the really interesting bits and pieces, and give you the ability to share that with folks. So with that, I think that's all I'm going to share about collections. So I'm going to hand it off to Lindsay at this point to get into the ChemDraw Plus application.
All right. So thank you, Jinsu, for the nice introduction to ChemDraw Collections and all the useful things we can do with it. The next application that we wanted to talk about is ChemDraw Plus. So if you have not heard about ChemDraw Plus, what is it? So it's a new application that we launched in February of this year that is a fully integrated web version of ChemDraw ChemDraw software, right? So it allows you to not only draw and create and curate your drawings in the cloud, but it allows you to manage those and access them anywhere you have a Wi-Fi connection on your computer. So it does not require a local install of the desktop application if you're using it on the go, for example. So within the application itself, what you have is a dashboard that allows you to not only create new drawings from style sheets, similar to how you do that in ChemDraw desktop application. It also allows you to access recently edited or favorited drawings within the application itself. To get information into the application, you're able to upload drawings into the application that you have saved locally, similar to what Jinsu was showing you about all of those local drawings. What you have from a CDXML or CDX standpoint, you can get directly into the application itself. And then once you have all that information, you can browse it in different views. So you can view all of the different drawings within the application. You can organize those things into notebooks, and you can also favorite those, so for quick and easy access as well. Maybe the best part about the application itself is simply that we are updating on a very regular basis, where you would see update of ChemDraw Desktop once within a year cycle as a major release, and then one minor release within that year. You will be seeing updates to the ChemDraw Plus application on a very regular basis, every approximately 4 to 6 weeks. So with that, I'm going to jump into the application itself. So let me just come to ChemDraw Desktop. So you may be wondering, how do I get to this application, right? So if I'm in ChemDraw Desktop, I have Signals ChemDraw, I can directly access this application from my desktop general toolbar. So I have this little tool on my toolbar. That's the Signals menu. So it shows me all of the applications I'm licensed for in the Signals platform, and I can get there directly from here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open that. It's going to take me, if I'm not logged in already, to a login screen. I'll use my Signals credentials and I'll land right here. And so right now, what am I seeing are all the applications that I'm licensed to in the Signals research platform. What you see here are the ChemDraw specific applications, as well as Signals Notebook, if you're a Signals Notebook user as well. ChemDraw Plus is the specific application we're talking about, and right here from the home portal, I can launch directly into it. Now you do also have from that general toolbar in ChemDraw Desktop the ability to jump direct to here, but if you ever need to get back to that home portal, of course you can use the application launcher itself in ChemDraw Plus that gets you back to home, or can launch any of the other applications that you have access to as well. So I mentioned you have this dashboard view, right? So what can I do in here? So I can create new drawings from those style sheets. So you have all the style sheets available to you in the ChemDraw Plus application that you would in ChemDraw Desktop. A new addition in the version 23 release cycle for Signals ChemDraw would be the dark mode style sheet. You also have that graphic monomer style sheet that allows you to draw peptides, oligonucleotides using that graphical format. To visualize that as well. So if I were to select any one of these, what it would do is take me to a new drawing screen, which allows me to name my drawing and then select a notebook that would be saved in as well. Additionally, what I have here is my recently edited drawings and my favorites. So if I want to immediately launch into something that I was just editing a day or two ago, I can open that up and I can, start that editing process as well. What I'm imagining is new users of the platform will probably want to first start by uploading content they already have. And so how would we do that? So if I go to the Add New button, I'm going to come in, I'm going to press the Upload button, and now I'm going to choose a file that I'd like to upload. So this is a recent synthesis that I've been working on, drawing sort of the full synthesis of COPA Camphor, and I'm going to put it in my ChemDraw Connect notebook. So I'm going to upload that, and this is going to now take me into a web editor view. So it's going to upload my drawing into the application, and now I can start directly editing it here. Now, if you are New to the application, this may all look just pretty normal and standard for you, but in the very recent past, we've actually rolled out a new sort of editing view. So I have the new ChemDraw editor turned on. This may be more familiar to you if you've used ChemDraw in Signals Notebook or the Signals Research platform before, but we have been expanding this to give access to more tools and allow you to edit more complex drawings directly in the ChemDraw Plus application. So what you see here is a quick tour of the drawing view. Are all of the sort of drawing tools available to you on that left-hand toolbar. So if I, for example, want to start drawing, of course, I can start, drawing a new molecule directly. Quickly draw that onto the canvas. But I have all of those available to me. Now, as soon as I start making selections, then I start seeing things populate on the right-hand side. So I have 3D clean here on the right-hand side. I have the ability to generate a name from my structure. So if I want to do that, I can populate that directly onto the canvas for myself. Oops, I didn't mean to unselect that. I have other information available to me. So if I want to flip this structure, if I want to do a structure clean, or if I'm selecting reactions, for example, I can do a reaction clean right here. So that will start to clean up my reactions for me as well. So this is a new sort of playground in the web that allows you to very quickly and efficiently start generating those drawings. One thing to note is, because this is a quite new application itself, is if there are features that you'll have unavailable that you need to access, you can always invoke a round trip editing process in ChemDraw itself. So for example, I have this drawing. I now want to add some color to it. I can open this now directly in ChemDraw desktop, and I can start adding some colors to it if I want. So maybe I want to, let's give myself the color menu, start adding some ring fills here. I can do that pretty easily and pretty quickly. And then once I make save these changes, they'll be right there and available for me in the ChemDraw Plus application itself. So let me just get a few nice colors in here, and then we'll save it, and we can go back to editing in ChemDraw Plus. Awesome. Let's save that. And now we can close, and let's go on back to ChemDraw Plus. And what we'll see is now this is the top drawing in my recent drawings. I can open it back up, and there I have my new colored drawing available for me. A few different things here as well. You do have some panels from side to side within the application. So if you are doing things such as assigning enhanced stereochemistry in the panel on the right-hand side, you would be able to access something like that. So if I were to actually select a molecule, I can assign some enhanced stereo centers to that if I'd like. I won't do that today, but that is definitely available to you here. And you'll see more things populating into that panel view as well. You have a few other panels on the left-hand side as well for the Helm editor, and I'll show that how you might draw with that in just a minute. You also have access to templates, which I'll show you as well. Okay, the last thing here that I would show you, whoops, I didn't mean to do that, is that you also have a nice new zoom feature here. So instead of just zooming in increments, you also have the ability to select, zooming in as far as you want into the drawing itself. You can also choose to zoom to fit. And if you select a specific molecule on the canvas here and you start zooming in, it's going to center that molecule, and it's going to zoom into exactly what you've selected and center it for you. Okay. So, moving on, one thing that I will also show you, so I mentioned that you can do some 3D clean. So in the ChemDraw Plus application, you can access 3D through a tool on the toolbar. So I have this nice, let me just select it and zoom in for us. I have a nice set of molecules here that I want to create in 3D. So what I'm going to do is just select this and I'm going to clone it. So if you are familiar with hotkeys, I am on a Mac today, so I'm going to press Shift and Option on my keyboard, and that is actually going to create myself a clone of those molecules I have selected and keep them in alignment. So I cannot move them vertically up and down. I can only move them horizontally. So I'm going to do that. Once I've done that, now I can create a 3D version of them. So I have right here on my context bar, I have cleanup 3D structure. So now I can do a 3D clean, and I'm starting to get a 3D rendering. Now what happens if I want to adjust these a little bit? I can start rotating them. I'm now using some shortcut keys on my toolbar to do that. I'm using Shift, Option, and arrows to get myself a nice rendering here of these molecules. I can similarly also use the 3D perspective tool here on my toolbar and start rotating them as well. Once I have these sort of in the orientation that I want, I can also do a global sort of orientation and rotation to see my entire 3D structure. So that's a nice new feature that's pulled into the ChemDraw Plus application. You can access 3D. If you have a more complex molecule, this is an iterative process for that 3D clean, so you may want to do 3D clean a few times here to get the lowest energy minimization for that 3D rendering for your structure. Now that I've done that, I can, I'm automatically saving everything that I'm doing. Every action that I'm actually doing in the platform is automatically saved for me, so I don't have to worry about losing any changes. What I do see here is that's saved, and I can move on. I can close this, or I can continue making edits as I wish as well. Okay. The next thing that I want to show you is Helm. I don't know how many biopolymer chemists that we have in here, but you may or may not know you can draw peptides and oligonucleotides in ChemDraw directly. And similarly, you can do this in the ChemDraw Plus application. So we have this new editor over on the left-hand side panel called the Helm editor. If you're unfamiliar with Helm, it is a notation that allows scientists to quickly and easily fully define a peptide or oligonucleotide, especially when it comes to customizations and non-natural monomers, amino acids or nucleosides that they may be using when building these structures. So this editor allows you very quickly to create these peptides on the canvas. So the easiest and quickest way to do this is to go into the text tab and input a Helm or a FASTA code into the text tab and insert it directly on the canvas. Now what you see is I just put ChemDraw on the screen. This is graphic. However, what's behind it are actually the amino acids that correspond to those FASTA codes. So if I expand that, what I'm going to see is that I actually have a very full structural representation of that peptide behind those graphics. And I can do the same thing with a DNA or RNA. So if I want to put an oligonucleotide on the sequence, I can even generate the complementary strand for it. So if I want to create a set of complementary strands for my DNA sequence that I have, I can do that directly on the canvas. You also have the ability to, of course, draw these using natural monomer libraries. So let's come in here and let's view all of our monomers that we have. This is the natural monomer library. If I start using these buttons here, I'm going to start creating a sequence on the canvas. What you see is a cursor that shows you where that next peptide will be inserted. And I can use arrows on my keyboard. So I'm going to start pressing the left arrow, and that's going to start navigating through my sequence for me. So if I want to add a cysteine right there in the middle of my sequence, I can do that as well. And I can start building that exactly as I need. Maybe I want to go further and add a phenylalanine there or a proline, and I can add that right in. And of course, like I said, all we have to do, we can clone that, expand the structure, and now we have a full structural representation. If it doesn't look quite clean, we can do a structure clean to get a little bit better structural representation of that. And now we have a structure and we can move on and continue to edit if we'd like. Now, I'd like to show you a quick real life molecule in terms of Helm for that's out there and actually as a drug in use in the market. So I don't know if you have heard of the GLP-1 drugs and that have come onto the market. Some of them being semaglutide. There's one in particular that I wanted to just illustrate how you would very quickly get it into ChemDraw itself. It's dulaglutide, so that is under the trade name of Trulicity. So this is a peptide that's used for the treatment of diabetes, actually. So if I go into PubChem and I search dulaglutide, I get a number of different pieces of information about the structure. One including biological description, the UPAC, the sequence, which would be the FASTA, you've got the Helm, and then you've got the IUPAC name. So very easily and very quickly, you can get this actual structure directly into ChemDraw simply by copying this sequence, pasting it into the text tab, and inserting it on the canvas. And now let's just do a quick zoom to fit. I have that sequence directly on the canvas. Similarly, I can copy the Helm code. So Helm is a different way to represent this. I can also put that into the text tab. I can insert it on the canvas. And look, I've got the exact same sequence now, lines for that particular substance. Now, the maybe more interesting thing is, of course, we can take this now, we can expand the structure. Let's zoom out before we do it so we have enough room. I can expand the structure. That looks really nice. But I can also, let me just, one last thing, I can take this IUPAC name and I can ask ChemDraw to generate the structure from that name. I'm not going to paste the name below it, but I'm going to go ahead and paste this onto the canvas. Whoops, and there we go. And if I can actually do a few structure cleans, and what you'll see is this structural representation. So there are a lot of different ways that you can actually get information into ChemDraw and ChemDraw Plus. Some of them including, you know, of course, smiles and INCHI codes, but now Helm and FASTA. You can even generate a structure from a name as well if you choose to. So that's a nice and quick overview of getting some of these more complex structures and into the ChemDraw Plus canvas and drawing some of those biopolymers as well. All right. Let's move on to one of the last things that I'm going to discuss with you guys today, and that is something that you may or may not be aware of in ChemDraw Desktop itself, but it's also available in ChemDraw Plus. It's templates. So you can use templates in ChemDraw very quickly, very easily to draw very complex structures. So similar to inputting a name into ChemDraw Plus and generating the structure from it, there are a significant number of different templates that are available to you. So one that I'm going to show you to start with is around bioart, right? So there are a lot of scientists out there doing mixed sort of modalities, right? So they're doing antibody drug conjugates, and they need to be able to represent that. Now, of course, you could start using Helm for that, right? There are different things in the Helm notation that would allow you to depict something like an antibody. It's something called a blob. However, sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words, and so creating that conjugate using an actual picture of sort of a graphic representation of an antibody is more preferable over using that Helm notation. So you can actually access bioart such as this directly in the ChemDraw templates. And so in ChemDraw Plus, you have a templates panel that you can pull open, and you can actually sort of navigate through there. So if I look into the advanced BioDraw templates here, I'm going to see a lot of different cool things, things like organelles, antibodies, etc. And I can even choose which antibody I'd really like to render here. So I'm going to choose this one. It looks very similar to the actual structure that I'm seeing on the canvas, and I can draw it right there on the canvas. Now that's a little bit small, so let's just make this a little bit bigger for ourselves, and we can go ahead and place that on the canvas. Now, of course, what you want to do if you're sort of attaching this to a drug conjugate now is to create your linkage. Now, once I actually put that SH on it, I can select this structure. I can press the command button on my Mac. I can stretch that a little bit to give it a little bit better sort of rendering. If I want this to stay together, I don't want things to move independently, I can now also group them. And so what I can do, let me just go ahead and clone this molecule, and we can make that connection. Oops. Let's just zoom out just a little bit more. I'm gonna create this. Now, I'm gonna just go ahead and connect them. So now I've got my antibody drug conjugate, and I can continue moving on in my editing process here. Let's just give ourselves a structure clean. Oops. And whoop, for some reason, we're looking a little funny here. There we go. Awesome. Okay. So if I want to change also the actual coloring of this antibody, I can invoke a round trip edit in ChemDraw. I can change that coloring if I wanted to match that blue. If I want to change the color to something else, I can do the same. But there are lots of different templates that are available. So Advanced BioDraw is one of them. If you start looking in, if you need other sorts of pictures for things like figures, abstracts, etc., you can look in here. You've got a lot of different sort of anatomy things. So say you're doing something that is activated in the kidney, right? You need to portray that as part of a cycle of some sort. For metabolism, you can do that. You also have quite a few different templates in the application for drawing small molecules too. So what we'll do is I'm going to go ahead and just create a new drawing where we can look at a few different small molecule templates. So I'm going to create templates in ChemDraw Plus notebook or drawing, and then I'm going to put it in my ChemDraw Connect notebook. Let's go ahead and create that. And let's start looking in the different sort of categories here. So I've got different aromatic kinds of compounds. You can see different sorts of caged molecules here. So if I had, this is a 2D rendering. If I want to go ahead and make that into 3D, I can very easily and quickly do that. Let's just make it a little bit bigger so we can see what's going on. And we've got sort of a half of a buckyball here, etc. So if I go back as well, let's go into the bicyclics. So bicyclics are one of the harder sort of structural things to actually draw. Luckily, we have quite a few of those templates already available. If you'll remember in that camphor synthesis that I started off with, I actually started drawing this using the templates available in ChemDraw, so I didn't have to draw this bicyclic structure from scratch. I could have something that looked rather nice immediately without trying to sort of massage that and do point and click drawing there. Additionally, we've got things like metallocene. Now, metallocene are really nice, used very often in different kinds of syntheses. You've got a few to actually choose from to start building those metallocenes that you may be working with in ChemDraw itself. Let me just put a few of these on the canvas. And any one of them you can then generate into the 3D rendering and sort of get a really nice sort of rendering of that itself. And of course, you've got the metals here in the middle. So if you need to change it for whatever it is that you're working with, you can do that as well. So let's just get a few 3Ds going as well. Okay. The last thing that I will show you, so I have two more things here in the templates to show you. And mind you, the other thing here is that these templates are actually resizable. So if you want to make this panel a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger on the side to make space in your canvas, you can do that. If I want to pull in some nanotubes, though, I can do that as well. So I've got this nice template already ready for me. Now I have made it into a 3D rendering and I can use it in my chemistry. I don't have to build this from scratch, which is really nice. And then the last thing is let's look at some of these different supermolecules. So something like cyclodextrins, these are very large molecules that we don't always want to have to draw, right? So we've got these templates already available to us. And of course, just like with anything else, let me just zoom out a little bit and let's create a clone, and then let's give ourselves a nice 3D rendering of our cyclodextrin. And now we can start creating any of these sort of cyclic molecules. Maybe they're caged, they have things inside of them. This is a really nice and quick way to start building those for us. All right, so we have about 15 minutes left. I think I have one more thing that I really would like to show you guys before we open it up for questions. One of the last things that we sort of introduced in the Signals ChemDraw Desktop version 23, and in ChemDraw Plus as well, is the idea of a dark mode style sheet. So this is a style sheet that has a very dark background and a light foreground to allow you to sort of first of all, ease the eyes if you're looking for that in drawing, but also just be able to create much more high contrast chemistry. So we have this dark mode style sheet. If I go back to the dashboard, I can create a new drawing using that, of course, but I also can, let's go right back in here. Now I can draw inside of here. So I've just drawn a few molecules. I pulled a few example molecules from the Drug Hunter website of what that might look like. So being able to draw with that light foreground and the dark background really starts to make those molecules pop and is also then much easier on the eyes as well. So you can start drawing and creating those drawings as you wish in that dark mode. If you start actually creating a drawing that becomes sort of a template for you, something that you want to use to create something new. You also have the ability in ChemDraw Plus to duplicate something that you've created. So say I want to use this as a nice template for the next sort of figure that I'm going to draw. I can duplicate this, and now I have a new version of this. I can rename it. Maybe I will actually name it my high contrast chemistry template, and that's available to me, and now I can keep using it and keep editing, and I can create as many duplicates of that as I want. Once I am satisfied with what I've done here, if I want to access this from my favorites view, I can do molecule, and now I can come over here. I'm sorry, my drawing, I can come over, and now I can access all of my favorited items here. The very last thing is you now have in the ChemDraw Plus application the ability to share things with your colleagues. So any of your colleagues that are within the application itself also have the Signals ChemDraw license. You can now share notebooks with them in the application. So I can choose to share my notebook. Now that I've created it, I've added all the drawings I want. I might continue. Can choose to give read, write, or full control access to everything inside this notebook to the ChemDraw users within my organization. Once I've done that, any users that have been shared this notebook will get a notification in the application that I've shared an item with them, and they'll be able to go directly to it. Depending on the access that I've given them, they may be able to make edits in my drawings as well. They may only have read access, and they'll be able to view those drawings, but not actually make edits as well. So that's a new sort of feature that's come into the application itself. With that, I'll just go ahead and pop back into my slides as a quick wrap up. So you may be wondering, how you could get access to ChemDraw Plus. So within the ChemDraw product portfolio, we have a few different offerings. So we've got ChemDraw Prime, which gives you sort of basic, most efficient chemical drawing tools available in ChemDraw Desktop itself. You also have ChemDraw Professional, which adds additional features and functions on top of that in the chemical and biological intelligence areas. Additionally, it provides integrations out to applications such as SciFinder, Reaxys, etc. With Signals ChemDraw, this is now the replacement for ChemOffice, if you're familiar with ChemOffice or you've had a subscription to that in the past. Signals ChemDraw is now the fully featured ChemDraw desktop application with new integrations into the Signals research platform, so including licensing, etc., for the product. And then you also get these new cloud applications. So the application that Jinsu talked about today, ChemDraw Collections, as well as ChemDraw Plus as well. And if you're using biopolymers and in the biopolymer space, the Helm monomer curation application allows you to curate monomer libraries in the Signals research platform for use in the ChemDraw Plus application and visualization also in ChemDraw Collections as well. Okay, with that, I want to say thank you to everybody. If you are ever interested in anything new that's coming out in Signals ChemDraw and ChemDraw Plus and any of those other applications, you can always check it out on our What's New website within the Revity Signals website. And I would be happy to open it up for questions.
Okay, Lindsay, I've got actually, there's a couple of questions about collections that I'm gonna start with here.
Okay.
So the first question, how did you get all the documents into collections in the first place? And the answer to that is, I didn't put anything into collections. Collections is an application that you download onto your, your computer the same way that you do ChemDraw, and it just is able to read into your file folders. So as long as it sees, it'll see, hey, here's a Word document, here's Excel, whatever. if there's structural content within those files, it'll show you what's in there. It doesn't, you don't have to upload anything at all. It just says, I see something in this. So yeah, there's no manual work that's required for that. And then there's a follow-up question, what kind of documents can it recognize? Is it mostly office files, things like that? And so Lindsay, feel free to jump in here. So yes, it is principally office files. So you're talking about Word, Excel, PowerPoint. It also does read into SD files. Obviously your native ChemDraw files, your CDXMLs, it'll read into that. PDF or image recognition, it doesn't extend out to that. That's kind of the holy grail of chemical searching right now, is can you lift something off of a flattened out file and then interpret that chemically? Not quite there yet. So yeah, really restricted to the office files, your SD files, and your ChemDraw files that have basically chemical structure content pasted in them.
Awesome. Okay, so let's see. We have a few more questions. So I think I answered it, but I will. I'll maybe be a little bit more clear. So how can you access ChemDraw Plus? So ChemDraw Plus is available with a Signals ChemDraw license, and that was released and launched alongside version 23 of ChemDraw. So if you have version 23 or higher of ChemDraw and you have a Signals ChemDraw subscription, you can access ChemDraw Plus. The accessibility of it, let's just let me go back into ChemDraw Desktop. If you have version 23 of ChemDraw installed on your machine and you have a Signals ChemDraw license, you have the general toolbar. So the general toolbar, this is my general toolbar right here. I have, my typical save icons, etc., but I have these two new icons. I've got my Signals icon, which shows me all of the applications available to me within the Signals Research platform, including ChemDraw Plus. And then I have this other icon, which I didn't show you guys, but it allows you, for anything that you've opened from the ChemDraw Plus application, it allows you to close that specific drawing and open it up directly in ChemDraw Plus to continue editing. So if I want to just really quickly illustrate that for you guys, let me just open up my high contrast chemistry that we were just working on. So I have this, maybe I make a few edits, maybe let's just clone a few of these molecules. Then what we can do is we can save that, and now I can choose to open it in ChemDraw Plus. So that'll directly close that on my desktop and now open it and let me continue editing right here in the web application itself. So I hope that I answered your questions. Let's see if we have some more. Oops, didn't mean to pop that over. Okay. Okay, so we have a question about gold nanoparticles. Can they be drawn? The answer is, I guess, nuanced. But you certainly can if we're talking about the Helm notation. Let me go back into the drawing that I have for biopolymers here. So in the concept of Helm, you have different polymer types, right? So I showed you mostly illustration of a peptide for Felicity today. You also, like I said, can draw oligonucleotides, so DNA and RNA, create their complementary strands. You also have this other type called blobs and chems. So if I go into, let's go to the Signals monomer library. So you have different libraries you have access to within ChemDraw Plus. So you have this also this concept of a blob when it comes to drawing biopolymers. Gold nanoparticles are one of the things that, one of the reasons that blobs exist. So they're nondescript and can be sort of illustrated by this blob entity. So if I want to say that my peptide is attached to a gold nanoparticle, I can use that blob entity, and then I can actually attach it to my peptide, my oligonucleotide, etc. And that will be there. Let's just zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. That will be attached to my sequence. So the way that you can distinguish between these different polymer types is, of course, by the shape of those monomers that you see on the canvas. So anything that is a blob will be colored blue and be that rectangle shape. Peptides are those circles. If we go back and put an oligonucleotide on the canvas, you can see different shapes for ribose, for phosphate, and for nucleobases as well, so that you can actually distinguish between them. And you also have color coding based on that natural monomer that any of these custom monomers may be derived from as well. Okay. Any other questions? So if using registering a molecule in Signals notebook using BioArt, can you override the calculated molecule weight to include the mass of the antibody? I actually would have to defer to you, Jinsu, on this question. I don't know if you are able to answer that.
Yeah, so I would say the blob feature is, probably the best solution here in that it allows you to define, similar to a nanoparticle, right? When you're looking at a conjugate or something, you don't necessarily need all the atom to atom connectivity. You just need it to know, hey, there's a molecular weight here that is important for me to know on an entity. So the blob is probably the best way to do that. So in the same way that there's this gold nanoparticle, you can also define something called an antibody and then assign a molecular weight to it in the registration process.
We also have generically sort of defined antibody as well in the Signals monomers, but you can define them in the Helm monomer curation app as well as a custom antibody if you want them to be specifically named as well. All right. I think the rest of the questions that I see are really about access to ChemDraw Plus, and I think that we've answered that question. So I think if there's no more questions, we're really at the top of the hour. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who's joined today. We've really, I hope you've enjoyed the session. If you want to check out what's new in Signals ChemDraw, please feel free to use that QR code to get to the What's New page. And we look forward to our next session in about another 2 months.